My advisement would be to go with what Deep had originally said and to not include the meal plan waiver.
Okay. Making that not a friendly amendment, correct or not?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So back to you. The person who started this, do you want to make that amendment?
I then step out and ask for a formal amendment from a member of the Senate body.
Next in line for who to talk is Jared and Paul. And if someone wants to make that amendment, raise your hand and I'll get you next on the list. Jared, go ahead.
All right, I'm not going to make that amendment, but I do want to say this. This actually boils down to real politics, not SGA politics, but big people politics. So this is not just us, and when we vote on this, we're actually making a big people politics stance. However, it is supporting minorities, and it is supporting something that I believe the University of Louisville student body feels very strongly about. If we pass this, as it is in its current form, these students won't be able to just walk up to someone's door and get a meal plan exemption. In all likelihood, I agree. Sodexo will not exempt students for this. This will not happen. However, there are times where you pass a resolution and you know it won't have an effect, but you pass it in order to state the opinion of the student body. In my opinion, watering it down and making it more likely to pass, I believe, shows some weakness on student government's part. If we stand up for this really strong position and Sodexo compromises and meets us halfway and works their way down, that might be better than just compromising at the very beginning and going from a weaker position. Yep.
I do agree with what Mike said about being worried about abuse of Sodexo. That's why there are things in place like the Meal Plan Exemption Waiver Committee. I mean, it's hard to prove if you only eat a halal or only a kosher diet, because I know lots of Muslims and Jews that don't follow it, but follow it around their families. It's hard to say you're a raw vegan and prove that. But things like this do get exemptions. So saying that you're morally opposed to Chick-fil-A should just have the same burden of proof that the rest of these do. Also, I agree with Mike that I'm worried about the abuse of Sodexo, but I'm more worried about the abuse of students. Because if the students' money is going to Chick-fil-A they don't want it to, then as we talked about before, that's an infringement upon their freedom of speech. Because of that, though, I do agree with what the e-board said, that ideally they would just keep student money overflowing from going to Chick-fil-A. So I'd like to make an amendment, and it is friendly to me, to be after the first, therefore be it hereby resolved. It'll be a new, be it further resolved.
Right here.
Yeah, it'll be a new one. And yeah, sorry.
You're good. All right, let's go.
Alternatively, if Sodexo
What's spelled wrong? What's spelled wrong?
Further.
Further. Wow, well, that is. Sorry, guys. All right. You guys are on it tonight. Wonderful. Okay.
Alternatively, if Sodexo will agree to prevent leftover student meal plan money from funding Chick-fil-A.
All right, y'all help me
Raise your hand.
here. And chick.
How does-
Okay.
No, it's okay.
Like that?
And it's double capital.
Capital F.
Sorry. Funding Chick-fil-A, comma. It's a little left. Well,
It's big F everywhere else in the document.
sorry. I think I said big after the whole thing. From funding Chick-fil-A, comma, and thereby. Prevent.
I don't know.
Student philosophy. Freedom of speech. Comma. And then student government will no longer recommend authorization to Chick-fil-A.
Recommended.
Authorization to Chick-fil-A. For a meal planning exemption. So that'd be everyone.
Just a small thing, so whatever, I think if it agrees to, that we need.
Alternatively, if Sodexo agrees,
Agrees to, like,
agrees,
I like Will agrees with that, but agrees is fine too.
I trust the English major.
he said trust me.
The engineering major says trust English.
Okay,
I just have a question.
go, ask
Ask you
her.
right now. So basically, this is proposing that with that residual money, we're just asking them basically not to give money to Chick-fil-A, but to continue to give money to Papa John's, McAllister's, everyone else but Chick-fil-A.
Essentially, there's a clause in the contract, and Don can do whatever he wants to, but Chick-fil-A gets funding every year or every other year, however it is.
Based on
From
that
Chick-
leftover.
based upon the contract. All we're asking is based upon that contract, city money not be used for that. It comes from general Sodexo. Sodexo gets funds outside of the leftover student money. So we're just asking the money from someplace else.
It's the same amount of money, but just from somewhere else.
In actuality, it won't make any actual difference, because they're just going to move money around and make sure that that student money doesn't go there. But philosophically, it will.
All right, Mike, Shane, who's next?
I would potentially like to propose an amendment to his amendment.
All right.
Because originally when we discussed this in e-board, what we had discussed was there would be alternatively there would be a different waiver someone could sign that would waive their leftover money from being spent. Instead of being a waiver for their entire meal plan, be a waiver for any excess money that they have left over on their meal plan not going to Chick-fil-A. So that way you're not telling Sodexo no longer can you pay Chick-fil-A, but here's a pool of money that you are not allowed to pay. This group of people's money you're not allowed to give to Chick-fil-A. Would that be a friendly amendment if I made it?
No, I see where you're coming from, but my argument would be that, as I said in the amendment, it is restricting students' freedom of speech, forcing to fund Chick-fil-A and their various activities. And making students sign a waiver to protect their freedom of speech, that doesn't sit very well with me.
Okay.
So,
Then I'll make the amendment anyway to amend it to say, or to say that in order for for student money to not be excess money not be given to Chick-fil-A, it would have to be, or they would have to sign a waiver. I don't know how to word it though.
To prevent
I need you to
leftover
Yeah.
students,
I'm sorry.
under the leftover students, modify it there, say who signed a waiver.
Can I have Jared tell you?
Yeah, Jared.
Okay.
To prevent leftover to prevent the leftover student meal plan money from those students who signed a waiver from funding.
are we going to put something in the rest of it about what the waiver means, who's going to conduct the waiver, and all the various administrative issues that will ensue from having a waiver?
Like you mean like a meal plan waiver, like we.
Like who's going to oversee this, how is it going to be drawn up, how are students going to be notified, et cetera? Because we've already got something in place for the meal plan waiver, but this is entirely different.
Parliamentary inquiry, has it been seconded yet?
No.
Okay, just checking.
The amendment stands as it's highlighted on here. Is there a second? All right. Is everybody together? I hear people saying they want this. Okay.
I'll say I'm confused.
All right. What's going on right now? What they're talking about, basically, if I have followed in this jungle. What's going on is this document, or what the intent behind it was that if students did not support Chick-fil-A, that at the end of their time, on last reading day or whenever your meal plan money goes away, if you've got $5 left, it goes into this pool, and they split it up, and residual money goes back to vendors. And what this is supposed to say is that we as a student body suggest that any residual money, Chick-fil-A not be considered in that division, and no residual money goes to them. So only funding that Chick-fil-A has is straight from the people that swiped their meal card when they bought a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
And that's what this is saying.
That's what this is saying, the whole document, with this friendly amendment. Now, what this highlighted amendment is saying is that the students that don't want their money to go, if they've got $5 left, they are adamant that 75 cents go different places, but none go to Chick-fil-A, that they have to sign a waiver that says, I don't want my money to go there if I have any receipts. That's what the highlighted part says. And that's what the motion is. Is everybody with me? We all together? Okay. I'll ask you again, is there a second? Now that we're all together.
Sure. Yeah,
It has been seconded and thirded and approved. Okay, is there discussion on the amendment? Go ahead, Curtis.
I'd actually like to ask you all to vote this amendment down. I think it does the same thing that Paul said earlier, and it's just going to weaken this document. I think this is something for the next administration to go in and try to work with Sodexo on, rather than weaken it from the beginning. I can tell you that we're already taking a firm stance on this, so any good bill that can come out of Senate this year is only going to help us next year. So I'm going to ask that you vote this amendment down.
Okay, we're gonna go John, Linda, and then Dee, and then Paul.
I'm for the amendment because I think we have to be practical in how we are looking at the whole issue. Basically, I think Mike was maybe trying to hit on this, and I'll ask you, Paul. Chick-fil-A will still get the exact same amount of money, right? It'll just come from, it won't be this dollar, it'll be this dollar.
Correct.
And so, like you said, it's symbolic. It's coming from the same pot, you're just moving money around. So with that, I don't even really understand the purpose. I don't know if this amendment matters, if that is all that it's saying, but it sounds like you're saying something different than what I'm hearing others say about it. But anyway, we have to be practical so that when we take this to the Meal Plan Waiver Committee and to Sodexo, they'll actually listen to it instead of saying, no, this is a big loophole, you know, like we had talked about last minute. If they say that, there's no way it'll be implemented and they will not listen to what SGA has to say. So if we can, you know, I don't think it's watering it down. I think that it's making it practical so they understand that we understand the issue. So it's a good idea in theory, I think, but ultimately it's not our responsibility to determine where that goes. I think you let, if the student body is as passionate about it as some people have said, then have them not eat there. And I think that does just as much. And again, it's just a statement.
That's all. Go ahead.
Okay, I was initially thinking that this resolution, because I don't have it in front of me, because I remember when we passed it last meeting, but I was thinking that it was about SGA opposing Chick-fil-A and making this resolution in response to that. This is not about SGA formally opposing. If I'm not mistaken, this is about SGA opening up a space for students who do have moral opposition to Chick-fil-A to have some ground underneath them to do so, to have a voice. And their voice would be not spending their money at Chick-fil-A. And to me, that would be in being able to opt out of the meal plan. And that's a matter of political principle. And I'm a little, I guess, I'm a little ambivalent about the new amendment because I like the resolution because I think it does allow students to have a political voice. But the new amendment, I think if we really do want students to be able to have a voice, and I think if Paul agrees to the amendment, then I think that practicality might be important. But I think it is important to remember, for me anyway, I got confused because I was thinking it's about SGA having an opposition, but it's just about letting students have opposition. So that's all.
Okay. Dee.
Two of the biggest things we've brought up so far. One, I don't think that this resolution is watered down by any means by such an amendment. John touched on it earlier. A lot of it has to do with the credibility of SGA. If we start going to the administration, if we start going to Sodexo, if we start going to university entities or even vendors like Sodexo,